Poonam Gupta, thank you so much for coming on Business Spotlight Interviews.
Thank you, Andy, for having me.
Why don't we just start with you telling us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it?
So I'm the CEO of PG Paper Company Limited, and we are an international paper trading company working in 60 countries. We've always been sustainable, and our major areas are packaging, publication papers. We do a very wide portfolio of paper, which basically we export to around six continents.
And how long have you been going, did you say?
The business is now going for 19 years. It'll be 20 years this year.
20. Oh, so are you going to have a bit of a celebration for 20th anniversary?
Absolutely, yes.
But that's a secret.
Yes. Well, it's not really a secret. I'm sure the team is very excited and will be planning things in October when we become 20.
Well, one of the things people seem to be really interested in hearing about from our interview series is what have been your biggest learnings and what have been the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome. So can you just share with us, like, what would you say has been your single biggest learning since you've become an entrepreneur?
Single biggest learning, I think it'll be hard for me to pinpoint a single biggest learning. Honestly, every day we are operating in an area, in multiple countries. Like I said, for us, every day is a learning day. I came to Scotland back in 2002, and I started my company from scratch with basically zero capital, and kept the company debt-free for first 5 years and continuously reinvested in my business to continuously develop my business, which is also a strategy I still use today. So if I were to say what is my biggest learning lesson, I guess, or challenge, is to create a business with practically no money. I started my business with £1,000, and I'm glad that I managed to do that. But as the business grows, it's important that we keep an eye on our cash flows. We keep an eye on the cash flows related to what our future goals and visions are. And I think one of the learnings have been that sometimes I feel it's not a good idea, chasing revenue as much as it looks good on the books. It's also important to remain profitable. So with reinvestment, we can continue to grow our business. And that is something I think is very, very important for any business.
And that must take a lot of discipline, especially in the early days, to continue to reinvest after you've started to generate some sales and get some comfort.
Absolutely, yes. It requires a lot of discipline, and it also meant that I was like always a penny pincher. I was trying to save every money in every corner. So budgeting is something that I find is extremely important for any business. Sometimes I mentor quite a few businesses as well, and I often tell them that you might have the best idea, but put that sales onto your books to show that this idea works. And that also helps you to go on and raise further capital that you may require.
And what have been some of your biggest issues that you've had to overcome, or the big challenges once you got started and we're moving forward?
Well, when I started purely with the Indian market. And something that I learned, although the business was doing really well for the first 2 years, even when I started, and I was purely focused on the Indian market. But what we've learned and seen again during COVID, something I learned, I'd say, quite early. In 2005, I faced my first biggest challenge when some problem happened in India, and suddenly overnight, nobody wanted to buy anything. My biggest customers kind of went into a safety mode where they were not placing orders. And at that time, I realized that to be dependent upon a single market is not a good idea. And one way business can build resilience is by being present in multiple markets. And now today, when we are present in 60 different markets, it helps keeping our business stable and also helps with the growth. So I think that is one of the things that I feel is really important. And COVID's kind of reiterated that. We've seen so many countries being heavily dependent on China for their imports, and suddenly there were no goods coming. And that's why I always say never ever stay dependent upon a single market. Always make sure, whether it's procurement or sales, that you have multiple options. So if something falls apart, you can always fall back, have that fallback plan to get your goods or to sell them in a different country.
I guess a lot of businesses during COVID suddenly realized the need to adapt what they were doing and pivot their strategy, and maybe they realized, wow, this is maybe something we should have been doing long before this unexpected event hit.
I was grateful in that sense, like when I mentioned 2005, when I had my first struggle with the Indian market, and then I realized that, okay, with the product offering that I had, of course, that product offering could go to multiple countries, and I started opening uh, Asia, also Far East. Then I started with Middle East, and then I realized that, okay, there is a market for my products. And I started saying that, okay, let's open market one by one. And opening every market wasn't actually very difficult. Sometimes businesses think international business is difficult. It's not really all that difficult. And it can actually pay quite well when you're present in different markets, because markets perform differently at different times. So this is something, I guess, during COVID, it helped me. My past learnings helped to keep the business on track in one of the most difficult times we've seen in this century.
So, speaking of growth and moving forward, what are your aspirations for your company in the next 5 years?
Well, PG is always, last year, we again grew by 20%. We are ambitious, and we are looking at multiple areas where we are looking for growth, including sustainable packaging, which is a big driver for our next phase of growth. So we are excited for what is to come in the next 5 years for PG Paper.
Fantastic. Now, one of the things that's changed maybe a lot since COVID has been the employment situation, particularly here in Scotland. I don't know what you have found, but I was wondering what your thoughts are on the current situation in Scotland regarding employment.
Well, when I started in the business, I would say we were in a niche area where, we didn't really have any competition, for my particular business in Scotland. So for me, hiring was always an issue. And what we learned was that there was a type of individual that we always look for, and the rest of the training kind of happens in-house. And again, that's been my model since the very beginning of my business. And again, that's helped me during, the difficult times, the easier times. We are constantly looking for a kind of person who can fit into our organization, who has the will and will to learn, and grow with us. And if we find that person, we take our chance and hire that person. So as much as I find it sometimes, it's more difficult to hire people in the leadership roles in Scotland, in senior positions. But in my company and in all my companies, actually, we give also major importance to systems. It's systems and people that work together to ensure that the goals and the vision we have, we are constantly moving towards that. So as much as the employment system was very difficult, for example, post-Brexit, then COVID, especially for hospitality sector, we were also ahead in the sense that, we have had international business and offices in various countries for a very long time. We were used to this hybrid model of working. Then we rolled it out very easily, I'd say, during COVID, and that helped us keep our employees safe and also motivated during those tough times.
And how do you continue to foster a positive and productive work environment?
We work I think communication is the key there. So we have a very clear system in our company, and whether it's somebody new joining in, or, we actually ask our employees to spend considerable amount of time on personal and professional development. That's a big area for us in terms of making sure our employees are well taken care of. And beyond that, we also provide support to our employees in terms of, mental health was a huge issue. And we have we rolled out a program with the help of local organizations, which kind of supported our employees. And not just that, a lot of them are now certified mental health champions who support each other. So for us, it's always been a big thing to look after our people, and that continues in my organization, which I think creates a very healthy and positive environment here. So I like to see people coming into work happy and not just waiting for Friday to happen. Of course, the weekend's important, family time and all of that. But I'd also want, most people spend most of their time in their work environment. It's so important to provide that safe work environment where people come in happy. And when they come in happy, their productivity automatically improves.
So you hire the right characteristics, the right mindset, the right personality, and then you can teach them the rest through professional, personal development and take care of them. And that's what keeps them motivated, keeps them productive.
Yes, as long as, this is what they want to do as well. Of course, that's really important. We have people who come from various industries, people who have started in our various departments who had no idea of even, how to do the basics in that department. And we've seen multiple cases of success where people have been presented opportunities and made the most of it. So we know that model works for us.
So thinking back to coming up on 20 years ago, what would you now say to anyone thinking of going into business for themselves, particularly if all they had was £1,000 or no money? What would be the advice you would give somebody thinking of starting out themselves?
See, when I started in business 20 years ago, I was new to this country as well. So I had to learn a lot of things, from scratch, even though I had double degree behind me. Coming and settling here, learning culture and how people interact with each other was very important. And some of my major procurements at that time were within Europe and USA. So again, learning and adapting to these markets was very important. But still, I think today the business environment is way more supportive than it was 20 years ago. There are multiple organizations, there are multiple courses available, hundreds of networking opportunities, whether you talk about the Chamber of Commerce, whether you talk about Entrepreneurial Scotland, whether you talk about Scottish Edge. There are so many opportunities out there for new businesses to start and take help from. There are multiple hubs, business hubs where startups can come together and set up. I think these opportunities really make it actually much more easier today if somebody is serious about doing something to get into business. And I would like to say, take this opportunity and try and see what you can make of whatever your dreams are. Follow them. There's enough help out there.
Yeah, I guess the only risk is that there might be too much information out there. We can be overwhelmed or confused.
Again, when I'd rather have too much information than no information at all. I think then you can work out okay, this information is good and this information perhaps I can do without. But again, if it's overwhelming, if information is too much, then again, there are organizations here who can help. Like Scottish Enterprise is a brilliant organization. And, again, these organizations can help to figure out what is important, what is not, when businesses are whether on their startup journey or growth journey. And, you can have mentors who can help you figure out the next steps that you need to take. Again, I say entrepreneurship is not that lonely anymore. And when somebody says, network is net worth, I truly believe that is to be the case, because there is something to be said about mutual learning, co-learning, like I call it, or knowledge sharing. And that helps because life is too short to learn from your own mistakes. So today, if I'm stuck or I have a question, I do have somebody somewhere in that sector that I can pick up the phone to. And that in itself is a huge value addition to any entrepreneur.
Well, I think that's great advice and a great reminder and a great place to stop, because we'll just dilute that with something mundane. I know I will anyway. So Poonam Gupta, thank you so much for taking some time to share your story with us and share your learnings. I'm sure everybody who watches this is going to really value that time that they listen to you.
Thank you, Andy.
And I wish you all the best of luck moving forward in the next 5 years. And congratulations on your 20th anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.